This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Ironmonger Brewing. Visit Ironmonger at their tap room in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yo, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios in Marietta, Georgia. And this week we're talking with Monkey Town Brewing. I'm Tim Dennis, and with me as always is my good friend and the birthday boy, Brian Hewitt.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
Congratulations, another trip around the sun.
It's been an absolute perfect week for it.
It is. It's good stuff.
Could not wish for a better time to have birthday.
Well, cheers,
festivities.
man. Cheers.
Yes, thanks so much. So joining us today, we have Kirby Garrison, the co-owner and head brewer of Monkey Town Brewing. We're going to talk about the interesting history behind the name Monkey Town, top-selling brown ales, crispy lagers, and adventurous pastry stouts. Kirby, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, boys.
Absolutely, man. How are things there in Dayton, Tennessee?
They're going well. You know, we're situated kind of right in between Knoxville and Chattanooga. So with everything COVID related, you know, we're kind of off the beaten path. So things have been not you know, of course, nothing is business as usual for anybody in the world these days. But it's you know, we've been fortunate. We've been spared the heavy-handed blow that COVID has dealt a lot of the world, and you know, especially parts of the country. So we're continuing to make beer, and people are coming out in droves to order it. So personally, it's as good as it could be, I assume.
You're right. Good as it could be.
Yep, good as it could be.
If you're in Georgia, they just open it up. We're not having any of that. Our governor here is like, you know what? Let's get back to it, Atlanta.
Let's just do it.
Yeah, Tennessee has been, you know, Bill Lee has kind of along the same lines. So
yeah. See? Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian, how about you, man? what'd you get into this week?
So I got into a little bit of fun stuff. It was, you know, it was a good weekend, a party week, sort of party weekend. You know, at points, I got into an interesting beer, a Language of Thunder Marshmallow Maple from 2019 from Trim Tab. I figured I had to drink something nice on a special day.
Absolutely,
my birthday.
man. Yeah.
I also got into a Last Will and Testament from Monday night from 2018. Both of those were tremendous beers.
Hashtag drink your cellar.
That was a hashtag drink your cellar. That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct. And, you know, just made the rounds, and there's a lot of stuff going on.
There is, Brian.
In my neighborhood,
yes,
the stuff has been happening very close by.
Very close.
I've had the National Guard in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I have had my Target get completely destroyed, and a Kroger near
It was
me.
on the news. Your Target made the news, Brian.
That's right. My Target is famous now.
The Italian restaurant you had dinner at
That's right.
A week ago, they set it on fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, yes.
You know what? I do want to say this, Brian. We stand by our friends in the black community 100% for the protests that are going on right now. We understand. I'm at a loss for words. As man, I'm a middle-aged white male. I cannot fully understand what any of them go through, but we hope that some serious resolution can happen here. And we hope there's no violence. There's some good people out there trying to protest peacefully, and we hope that can continue. And we hope there's results this time.
Yeah, I hope we get to a solution soon.
Absolutely.
Is definitely my thoughts. How about you, Tim?
Brian, you know, fairly easygoing weekend. Went down to visit our friend Adam, who brews at Eventide Brewing.
Oh, yes.
Went down there, and we drank through the tap list, I think, there.
I think we drank everything they have.
Sampled through them. We got to try a beer that was still in the tank, a honey blonde that they're doing. That he said will TBD named. So no name yet, but that'll be releasing soon. Also, Halfway Crooks, one of our favorites, lager brewers. They just do it. They had some more of their Ada on, which if you've listened to us, you know we rave about that beer. One of our favorite crispy boys, for sure.
So good.
So we picked up. And then Atlanta Brewing Company, who were not officially open, but some of our friends that work there were hanging out on the patio. So we sat there, and we got to get into one of their quarantine edition Hypewell stouts, Brian.
I didn't even know they had a quarantine
edition.
Didn't
that stout make the quarantine just a little bit better?
It definitely did, yeah.
Got to enjoy that. And that was coffee vanilla. right? Brian?
Yes, coffee and vanilla, I believe.
Yeah.
Hype whale stout with
Yeah.
coffee and vanilla.
Yeah. And then Brian, me personally, man, I keep fermenting any food that gets close enough for me to ferment.
I know we were eating some of the
we
pickles
made some
that
pickles,
you fermented.
made some
yeah,
pickles.
which is crazy.
Kirby, do you do any food fermentation either personally or at the restaurant there?
No, I tried to do some kombucha not too long ago
right.
that turned out pretty well, but of course, like with most things in life, I forgot about it, and it had forsaken me. So I had to dump it.
Sure.
But that little bit that I did, it tasted really good. But fermentation is fermentation. It's fun. It's spontaneous, of course, by nature, and I'd like to get into more of it. So
that was kind of my thing. This has been my quarantine project since I haven't had the time really to like brew and tend to a whole batch of beer, but I've been doing some fermentation arts there. And I've got the
normies are all baking bread. You're fermenting.
They're out there baking, but you know what? Me and the bread baking normies can hang together and share. Man, we can make this a pretty good party
and whatnot.
I was about to say,
Tim, we probably should mention that we have a new station too.
We do, Brian. Yes, absolutely. We have our brand new station as of this week. Thank you very much to WERL 950 AM in Eagle River, Wisconsin. Saturdays at 8 a.m. Central Time, and that serves the upper northern part of Wisconsin and the western part of Michigan's Upper Peninsula. So welcome. Thanks for a good beer country up there.
That is prime beer country.
Good beer country.
Speaking of beer, it's time for the beers of the week.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Woo-hoo! Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, as always, we have got some great beers to drink this week. We were going to get some Monkey Town, but Kirby just told us they were out of the lids he needed to can up the beer to send to us. So, Kirby, we're going to make do with what we've got here. I think we've got some okay beers to get through. We're currently drinking one from a Florida beer from Hidden Springs Ale Works. We have Drone Thugs in Harmony.
Nice.
Which is passion fruit and
Hidden Springs, Tampa, baby.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. Good beer. So getting into that one, we also have from our Stop by Atlanta Brewing, Brian, we have the Jellyfish Berliner, which is a strawberry rhubarb Berliner Weiss.
Indeed.
And that is a collaboration with the Georgia Aquarium for conservation efforts there. So we're going to get into that. We have a nice IPA from Louisiana, Brian. Parrish, Ghost in the Machine.
I'm actually drinking the exact same thing. Yeah, great minds drink alike.
Good stuff, man. Have you had the Dr. Juice from Parrish?
I haven't.
My personal opinion, Ghost is good. I like the Doctor just a little bit more.
So when I picked this up, I did not see the Dr. Juice.
Yeah, that was tasty. And you know what? I think we're going to nightcap this show with a little Westbrook Mexican cake. Brian.
Ooh, nice.
Nice. We got it going on there. So, Brian, what's happening this week in the news?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
All right, so kudos to our friends at porchdrinking.com for this little item here in response to the recent murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, which has taken all the news and has all the attention. Texas brewery Weathered Souls has launched the Black is Beautiful, collaboration initiative. Basically, any brewery that would like to participate can brew their own version of a stout recipe provided by Weathered Souls and make use of the label designs and discounted printing, so long as they donate a portion of the beer sales to foundations that support police brutality reform and legal defense for those who have been victimized. So far, 60 breweries are on board with the project, including Jester King. If you'd like to find out more, check out the official website, blackisbeautiful.beer.
I looked at the recipe. Looks like a tasty beer, man. I hope some of our Georgia breweries get involved with it.
I hope so, too. I actually did not look at the recipe. Yeah. Jester King, speaking of, is turning their property into a park to address social distancing needs as they open back up for business. Apparently, they've had some success selling beer and bread to go, and they have 165 acres that weren't previously open to the public, so they're opening that space up. The new Jester King experience will offer 2 miles of hiking trails to visitors and picnic tables distributed throughout the property. The brewery itself will operate on a reservation system with intermittent off-limit times dedicated to cleaning and sanitizing the facility. So that's pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another high-profile brewery reaction to the current pandemic, Firestone Walker is pulling out of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Connecticut, and they're laying off 9 members of their sales team in those states. They cite the complete loss of on-premise sales in eastern markets as the reason for leaving those states. though prior to the pandemic, they had also exited Vermont, Maine, and Rhode Island. So things aren't going well for them.
It's not, man.
In New
No.
England. Yeah.
And there was rumor they were coming to Georgia, but I'm going to bet that's not happening.
I have a feeling like that might
Yeah.
not happen. They're still on the East Coast
Still
in
out
some
this way.
states, though. Yeah.
You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk with Kirby from Monkeytown Brewing.
Have you ever thought about owning your own brewery but don't know what it takes to get one built? We're Storytime Construction, and we build breweries. We're Georgia's most experienced and hands-on contractors when it comes to building new breweries and tap rooms, or expanding existing breweries. We offer full build-outs, remodeling, and additions, as well as consulting and construction management. Give us a call at 770-733-4343. Storytime Construction. We build breweries.
As a brewery owner or taproom manager, are you looking for ways to enhance your customer experience while maximizing your revenues? Craft Cellar is a mobile solution that helps your brewery drive sales and attract new customers through online pre-sales for beer releases, events, and memberships. Get details now at craftcellar.com. Mention Beer Guys Radio after sign up and extend your free trial to a full 30 days. Remember craftcellar.com, craftcellr.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Well, I'm sure I'd feel much worse if I weren't under such heavy sedation.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Remember, all episodes are available on demand, so if you missed the broadcast, get the podcast. Beer Guys Radio is available on all popular podcasting apps. Now let's get back to our talk with Monkeytown Brewing.
Well, Kirby, we brushed on this a little bit in the last segment. We were talking about kind of, we don't want to dwell on it. I think I say that every week now, Brian.
But then we dwell.
But that we don't dwell.
No,
we don't dwell.
We don't.
But we do mention, we acknowledge it, the coronavirus, the COVID.
Right.
We tip the hat to it.
So you said for considering all things, you're doing okay right now, correct?
We're doing okay. So we've been back allowing people to sit down and dine in for, I think it's closing in on a month. And, we really haven't had, the cases that other large cities have. And
Right.
so, we have a different perspective, and we're certainly not I wouldn't say we're in the thick of it. We're not a hot zone. So all things considered, being shut down for as long as we were with doing just takeout, our beer sales surpassed our food for the first time in, since opening. Because we are, even though we are a brewery, we are a full-scale restaurant. We have,
Right.
40 plus food items, full bar. So a lot of people look at us, honestly, a little too much like we're a restaurant that makes our own beer, as opposed to a brewery that has food.
I can get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice to kind of get back to making beer the focus, which of course is my passion. It's why I wanted to open up Monkeytown. And when people would come in and get cans to go or growlers to go, I didn't have the distractions of the restaurant, so I could actually get to talk to people more. And I noticed that there were a lot of people coming from out of town as well, because a lot of breweries in bigger cities were shut down. And people use that as a reason to, well, let's get out and go for a drive. And then they realize,
Sure.
Dayton's really not that far away. So it was really, considering all things of how horrible COVID has been, it really allowed me to meet some new people, get some new customers in there that had never been to us before. And, for certain people, it kind of was like, oh, I never knew y'all were here. So we had a different perspective from it, most certainly.
Speaking of your food, though, if I remember right, don't you guys have some kind of unique nachos? Like, are they Irish or maybe blue cheese chip nachos?
They're Irish nachos. We did it one year for St. Patty's Day. It's homemade potato chips with corned beef, our famous beer cheese on top, a little bit of sour cream and chives. And they are insane. They're one of my favorite things on the menu.
I can say that they pair well with every beer that we tried there.
They did.
We went through the list munching on those nachos because it's not a small portion.
It's not a small portion. The portion of sodium that's in it is also not small, so it
Yes,
makes you
right.
thirsty. It's like, oh my God, this I don't care what beer it is, give me something liquid.
Bring it on,
So
man. Bring it on.
yeah, yeah, no, they're super tasty. People like them.
Brian, I think you actually were wondering about this, about ingredient prices, since
Yes,
we've been
that's
kind of
exactly
locked
right.
down here
Yeah.
for a while. Have you seen any increase on the price of your ingredients with everything that's been going on?
No, I've actually, because we're not a super huge brewery. On pace this year, I think we're going to do about 350 barrels, which is super, super tiny. So actually, I've seen ingredients, not only the prices stay the same, but I've had access to more types of hops. Like I have
Okay.
access to
Yeah.
Galaxy, Vic
No
Secret,
kidding.
Citra. I mean, a lot of these places that are, these hop growers, these hop contracts, people are just wanting to kind of offload amounts just because they need to. And so I've never been able to really use Galaxy before, and I've actually been able to buy Galaxy kind of as much as I want. Granted, I still do have to pay what everyone else has paid for it. It's a little bit easier for me to get ingredients. So it's actually been a little bit more positive for me.
That worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, man. We're seeing that with some of the smaller breweries here too, that, the takeout, I'm sure they wouldn't want to operate this way forever, but everybody's been encouraged to support your local brewery,
Sure.
and everybody's quarantined or laid off. What is it, like 92% unemployment right now or something like that?
Something like
So
that. Very
everybody's pretty
close.
much laying around drinking beer.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
been helpful to these little breweries that do take out. People have been supporting them. You say, hey, support these guys, and people are doing their utmost to do it. I've bought more beer through the
I
quarantine.
absolutely have.
Yeah.
And there was a story that we didn't get to. I think the IRI said that beer sales are up again, or still continue to be
See?
up. People
Yeah.
are going out and still
Gotta have a
stocking
drink,
up.
man. You
They're
gotta have a
taking it
drink.
home. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not there drinking it on site, which does hurt places that make all their money that way. But guys that can survive on selling cans to go are killing it still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, most certainly.
Kirby, we'd kind of teased this in the promotion to the show, but we discovered when we visited there that there's a really interesting story to Dayton, Ohio, or Dayton, Tennessee, as well as the name of your brewery. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, of course. And that Dayton, Tennessee was actually named after Dayton, Ohio. So
Was
a
it?
lot of
Okay.
yeah,
All
it
right.
was.
There you go.
Yeah, there's also Cleveland, Tennessee, and a myriad of other Ohio cities that Tennessee named their cities after. So yeah, back in 1925, uh, Tennessee had outlawed the teaching of evolution in publicly funded schools, and so there was kind of, depending on how you look at it, it was a historic court case, but it was also a little bit of a publicity stunt as well. There's a group that realized, we have to get this overturned, but it would also be a great way to generate business, and so they kind of mulled around different cities to kind of hold this historic court battle in, and Dayton was it. And so, it was what we're known for, and almost 100 years later, and actually, what was it? A year or two ago, there's actually a statue of William Jennings Bryan, who was the prosecutor for pro-creationism, and so Clarence Darrow was on the defense. Well, on the lawn of the courthouse, there's only a William Jennings Bryan statue and not a Clarence Darrow statue. So a couple years ago, there was a private group that actually raised money to have a Clarence Darrow statue erected and put on the lawn. And you would think that it was the biggest thing to happen since the court battle. New York Times did an article on it. NPR was here. Wall Street Journal, the Smithsonian. I mean, it was a huge deal. And so even today, in 2000, 2018, 19, 20, we're still talking about it, and it's still kind of what we're known for. We get people every year for the Scopes trial, kind of our festival that we have from all over the country, history buffs, people who really like that kind of stuff. So again, almost 100 years later, people are still talking about it, and it's what we're known for.
So it kind of sounds to me like the town has embraced the identity, the name Monkey Town, and probably embraced you know, using that as your brewery's name. Is that right?
Yeah, it has. I mean, we, my dad and I are from Dayton, so we have a lot of family here, but we lived in New York for 11 years in Eastern Long Island. So coming back, especially I personally, I was a little hesitant on how people would react towards us using Monkey Town Brewing Company. I didn't think people would be open to it. And, Dad was right. People have embraced it. And, people love the name, so it really has worked out. And it's kind of taken that harsh, sharp edge and softened it a little bit. So
I can see it. When you're a small town and you have something that significant there, embrace it. It identifies who you are, right?
It makes you nationally known.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Very cool stuff. Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take another break, but we'll be back very soon to talk more with Kirby from Monkey Town Brewing.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, WRKQ 1250 AM in Madisonville, Tennessee. Catch Beer Guys Radio on WRKQ every Saturday at noon local time. Now let's get back to our conversation with Monkey Town Brewing.
Kirby, just before we went to break there, you were talking about being in New York and coming back to Tennessee. And I saw, you went to, I believe it was Stony Brook University up there where and bartending in the Hamptons and that. How was it coming back to small town Tennessee after living in an area like that? How was that transition for you?
It's interesting because when you say the word culture shock, it's usually when you've never been to a place before, but I'm like, holy crap, I grew up here. Like I lived in Tennessee until I was 14, and I didn't come back until I was 25, as soon as I graduated. And, Tennessee was not the place that I had pictured having a brewery. And, I'd wanted to, of course, do it up there because, going from, the ages of 14 to 25, that's some pretty interesting years. You build relationships, you build, my roots are there, even though my roots, of course, started in Tennessee. And so when we tried to talk about doing it up in New York, you just need a lot of money. And, of course, money is not something that we have, even though, of course, living in the Hamptons, we were the people that served the people in the Hamptons. You know what I mean? So,
we lived in the Hamptons, though, right?
We still live there. And, of course, it was amazing. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of the lake. I've always been a huge ocean fan. And I'm 5 minutes away from the ocean. Here, I'm 5 minutes away from the lake. So it was just a different atmosphere. And we still have a lot of family that lives here in Tennessee. I actually live with my grandmother just right down the street from Monkey Town. And so when we talked about coming back, I was a little hesitant. And then when my dad had talked about calling it Monkey Town, I was a little hesitant. But, just like now that I look about it in hindsight, I was kind of worried about what everybody else was worried about. Oh, there's a brewery coming in here. They're going to call it Monkey Town this, that. That's a reason why nothing really cool has happened in this town for almost 100 years, is that people were kind of worried about what kind of town it is. And so all it takes is just someone wanting to, kind of change the narrative. And that's what we did. And like I said, we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary yesterday. And it's
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I hear that was it your birthday over the weekend, or
Brian?
It was mine.
Sure
Yes,
enough,
it was.
Okay, nice. Yeah, well, happy late birthday. My sister's was yesterday, and my uncle's is today. So it's a a nice
party
little
time, man.
Yeah, seriously, yeah. So, but
it's a nice grouping of birthdays.
It is a good grouping, and it's been great. Like I said, it wasn't where I thought that we would start. But now 5 years in, I don't see us being able to do what we're doing anywhere else. New York, anywhere in the country. It's in Dayton, Tennessee, and I'm super proud to be here.
So speaking of your anniversary, do you have plans to do something for that in the future, like special beers, or are you just kind of waiting to see what happens?
I am waiting to see what happens. I had really wanted to do something this year. We've done something every year except for last year because we are a full-scale restaurant. I have a lot of other things that I have to do in addition to beer, and the anniversary just kind of snuck up on me last year, and I'm like, I'll deal with it next year. And then this year, I really wanted to do something, and it just didn't come about. So I may, maybe later in the fall, once it cools down, do something, maybe do like an Oktoberfest, like kind of blow that out of the park, get some really cool bands in here, do some special beers, some swag and all that. But at this point, we're really just I'm just trying to fill my tanks, and we're blowing through stuff, so I'm just trying to catch up.
That's not a bad place to be.
No, it's a good problem to have. It really is.
Maybe you can come up with some German nachos for Oktoberfest.
There you go.
German nachos, yeah, like get some
bratwurst, some pretzel chips and bratwurst, and you know what? Now I'm gonna make some. Now I want German nachos.
I'm gonna eat some of those nachos.
Yeah. Now that you say that, my aunt is German, and she does banging schnitzel, so we may do some really cool schnitzel this year.
There you go, man. It's gonna be a party. We may have to make a trip back up for that.
We will have to.
Speaking of making a trip up there, I did want to say this. So we went up. I had to do a trip to Chattanooga a while back, and we reached out to the guys at the Brew Chat podcast and said, "Hey guys, we've been up there. We've done the Chattanooga beer scene. We've hit Heaven and Hell. We've hit Hutton and Smith. Odd Story. Those. What's the one we can't miss? That's not one of these guys." And they're like, "You know what? You have to hit Monkey Town." They're like, if you're going to hit one brewery in Chattanooga, it has to be Monkey Town. And he said, but they're just slightly outside of Chattanooga.
Slightly.
In quotations.
Right. I want everyone here to know that slightly is 40 miles.
Yes.
So it's a little bit out there. So thanks for that, Brew Chat guys. But I'll say this. It was worth the trip because we really enjoyed the beer. We learned a lot, about the scope straw and that. So we did not regret our trip there, Kirby.
Yeah, well, good.
We got to have that fluffernutter stout.
We did. Fluffernutter
and the Irish nachos, man.
And the Irish
nachos. Yeah.
And I was meeting a friend who is a hunter, and he mentioned that Tennessee allowed you to take additional deer this year because of overpopulation. So I actually went up there and got me a whole deer's worth of deer meat.
Nice. Awesome.
So it was a productive day.
It was win-win.
It was a productive day. You know what? Speaking of the Fluffernutter stout, you do a lot of really interesting stouts in that. So what kind of craziness is in the tanks right now?
Well, in terms of stouts, usually what I like to do with my stouts is I will do a small portion non-barrel aged, and then I've started doing the rest barrel aged and adjuncting it. So I did s'mores, and then I did cinnamon toast crunch cereal.
Okay,
nice. So I did a barrel aged cinnamon toast crunch and barrel aged s'mores, and then a non-barrel aged cinnamon toast crunch and s'mores, and then just a regular non-barrel aged, and then barrel aged. So really the size brewery that I have, I get to take an entire 4-barrel batch of beer and really play around with it. And I like having a small brewery like I do because it allows me to stay creative. I'm not having to do 10 barrels of one type of beer. I really get to do just a couple of sixtels. and do some really fun, interesting stuff. And yeah, I mean, it really is playing into, you got to brew a beer where the ingredients that you're adding into it are going to work. You can't just brew whatever kind of base beer you want and just throw stuff in and expect it to work. You have to kind of say, all right, well, I'm going to be doing a s'mores beer. You have marshmallow, you have graham cracker, you have chocolate. You got to kind of think about how those ingredients are going to impart their own characteristics on the beer.
So you said think about the ingredients that they're used. So I said those ingredients, that would be for a Berliner, correct?
Yeah. I just did a blueberry cobbler and a peach cobbler. So we're talking graham cracker and vanilla and blueberry for one, and the same with peach. And it's crazy. I mean, craft beer has never been in a more experimental, creative phase. It's kind of like, I like to call it the Jackson Pollock times of craft beer, to where you can literally splatter paint against a wall and see what happens. I mean, you can. Does it work? Does it not work? Doesn't matter. It's art.
It's like a monkey flinging ingredients, right?
Ingredients,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Ingredients,
chocolate.
Yes,
right. Except I have a face mask and I have gloves on because COVID. So you got to stay sanitary somewhat. It's really cool to be, especially in a demographic where craft beer is not at the forefront of people's minds, people's taste buds, what they want to drink. It's cool having someone drink a blueberry cobbler sour because they don't like the taste of beer, as opposed to being in a bigger city where they're used to drinking that kind of stuff and they're like, does this taste like so-and-so's? So it's really, we're more in the market of converting people to craft beer. And that's why it's taken me a little while to kind of say, no, that this, what we're doing could not work anywhere else. I like being in Dayton because we truly are building a craft beer community to where people aren't used to these types of beers. They're not used to double barrel aged stouts or pastry sours or hazy IPAs. They're like, man, I can't remember the last time I had a good beer that I liked. And it's because it tasted like beer.
We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back very soon to talk more with Kirby Garrison of Monkeytown Brewing. Is your brewery or restaurant flooring all jacked up? Your foundation needs to be protected from heat, chemicals, and other contaminants. At the same time, you want to make sure it's slip resistant and you can clean up your messes with soap and water. You know who to call?
ResTech.
We've been manufacturing poured-in-place flooring since 2002, and we've got solutions to fit any facility's needs. Go on and visit our website at ResTech.net. That's RES-TEK.net. Drop us a line and we will come to you for a free evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
As beer lovers, we know real beer, and Athletic Brewing makes non-alcoholic beer that stands shoulder to shoulder with full-strength craft beer. With a fraction of the calories and certified organic, it's a great beer to enjoy anytime. Check out Athletic's selection of IPAs, golden ales, stouts, and more at athleticbrewing.com. Use code BeerGuys25 for 25% off your first order, and U.S. customers get free nationwide shipping. Athletic Brewing, brew without compromise.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons get cool perks like Beer Guys swag and commercial-free episodes. Now let's get back to Monkeytown Brewing.
Now, Kirby, when we went to break, we were talking about you being the Jackson Pollocks of small town Tennessee brewing.
Yes.
And having and having fun with things, and some cinnamon toast crunch and fluffernutter stouts and all of that. So something I think is really interesting is we talk about all these crazy beers. And my dad lives in a small town in Northeast Arkansas, so I'm very familiar with small town ideologies in that, how that works. And something that I think kind of speaks to the fact that you still have small town roots. From looking up the information, if I read correctly, your number one beer is a brown ale. Is that correct?
It's surprisingly, it's one of the highest rated brown ales that I've been able to find. And that's not, I don't toot my own horn ever, but it's surprising. And I've noticed that I grew up in the days kind of when Beer Advocate was still a thing. it's so much easier now to use Untapped and to check in things. I remember my days of being, I had a tumbler and I had where I would go on and I'd give a beer a 92 out of 100. And now I look back and I'm like, why did I give it a 92 out of 100? What made it that as opposed to a 95? And I'm like, it was, was it good or wasn't it good? And so, or was it not good? So I look at, kind of the beer that I like to brew and I'm like, just try to make it good. Just try to make it decent. Try to make it what you want it to be. And I noticed that for like brown ales in general, it's kind of a throw-in beer, whether it's an amber or a blonde. It's just kind of one of those beers that people don't think too much about. So I'm like, no, I love brown ales. And it's hard to find a really good brown ale. And so I really wanted to brew one that had a little bit of sweetness to it. Some of them can be a little bit too roasty, a little bit too bitter. And so I'm like, I really want to kind of make mine sweet and smooth and easy drinking. And the Brown and Out has kind of been one of those staples to where like it's not on right now because I just haven't had a chance to brew it. I've been busy, and I'm hearing from my customers they're mad, they're angry, they're like, where's my Brown and Out?
Keep it going, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me feel good. I wish that it was on tap right now, but I love that people like it that much, and it's super humbling. It really is. I like that people enjoy my beers, and that's a beer that they like because again. A brown ale is not something that you think people go to a brewery for, especially in today's day and age. It's the latest hazy or the pastry stout or the smoothie or the fruit sour. I like that people come here for the brown ales or the blonde ales. And, I like a lot of breweries nowadays kind of don't give enough attention to those types of beers.
I think with that, Kirby, it's kind of a catch-22 because on one hand, the breweries may not give them much attention, but a lot of the breweries, especially in the trendier areas, Atlanta, Asheville, North Carolina, we were talking to Dissolver out of Asheville recently, and we were talking about Pilsners becoming cool again and what big fans we are of that. And we're like, yeah, we've been talking about it for a couple years. He's like, yeah, us too. We're glad to see it. He said, so you're just telling me if I keep brewing I think he said ESB, right?
Right.
If I keep brewing my ESB, it'll become cool again, right? And I was like, just keep on, man. And
you
so I
gotta
think
believe.
that's kind of it too. It's like, it's like, even if you got a brewer, you know what? Kirby, you can love an ESB as your absolute favorite beer, but if you brew it and it doesn't sell, it doesn't make business sense to have it on your taps,
It's true.
So that's kind of the catch-22 is.
It is.
Brewers don't give it as much love. That's like Brian a few years ago when Exodus Porter took a medal at GABF and they immediately canceled it.
They immediately canceled
it. What the heck, guys?
Such a glorious, and that Porter was just beautiful. Yeah. And they bring it back occasionally.
It does the McRib returns every now and then.
I think so,
absolutely.
I've been inspired by all of your interesting, creative stouts and your brown ale and all that. I think I got an idea for you. I think I'm going to propose this idea for you.
Okay.
A stout based on Elvis's banana peanut butter bacon sandwich. It's a little smoked malt in there. You get your banana for the monkeys, and you got Elvis, because Elvis spent some time in Tennessee. And I think that it needs a logo. I know maybe you don't always put logos on your cans, but the logo, you put Elvis's hair and sideburns on that monkey hanging there. Perfect.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Maybe the shades too. So that's what I'm thinking.
Did you just say Elvis spent some time in Tennessee?
He spent a little time there. A little bit of time.
Yeah, he did spend a little time.
I might have been understating it slightly. Just a little bit,
So is that one on the brew schedule now, Kirby?
It is now. As long as I can give the monkey a little white V-neck T-shirt with a kind of.
It's good.
That Greaser Boys kind of look. So
TCB.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, absolutely do that. Yeah,
and you can call it TCB, Brian.
Yes, TCB with the little logo,
with the little lightning bolt.
Maybe
not.
That could be a collaboration with the estate, though. That could be a big thing because the collaborations with musicians. That's big.
Because he spent some time in Tennessee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Kirby, talking of underappreciated beers and beer styles, what's a beer that you love that you think people don't give enough respect to?
Well, certainly lagers are the new kind of beer on the block. I mean, everything comes full circle. They call it vintage for a reason. It was huge 20, 30 years ago, and it's just starting to get big now, or big again. So I've really liked drinking our Scottish ale, and it's really kind of hard to find a good Scottish ale. And kind of what we were talking about before, with breweries in bigger cities, not necessarily having that demand. I think that breweries like that are now, it's kind of like a reverse, like they're now doing their small batch type beers for these more drinkable more easy, more classic styles. Instead of doing small batch pastry stouts, they're doing small batch brown ales, small batch ESBs, small batch lagers, to where they can experiment with this type of stuff. So like for me, one of the beers that I've been drinking a lot, like I said, my Scottish Ale, but also it's my Munich Helles, that I brewed for the last year and a half. And it's just super easy drinking, just a nice everyday beer, something that has gotten a lot of people that come in here that really don't know craft beer hooked, at least on our beer. They're like, well, I really don't like beer up until this point other than Bud Light or Miller Lite or Coors Light, but I like that.
Sure. That's a fun thing to do too. Is to have people come in and let them discover beers that they,
Sure.
I'm a Bud drinker, I'm a Miller drinker without ever having to checked anything out. We used to do our homebrew club meetings, Kirby, and we had a friend that came over that was a Bud Light drinker, and he would tote a 12-pack of Bud Light around with him.
Yes.
He loved his Bud Light, but he also loved hanging out and trying the craft beers. But if he was just hanging and drinking, and you know what? We're like, dude, he's like, I hope you guys don't judge me. We're like, dude, if that's what you like drinking, drink it. That's what it's about.
Yeah, so. Exactly.
Speaking of the new hotness on the block, I think I remember having a Quake beer when I was there last time. You've experimented some with that, right? And what do you think of that yeast? I mean, are you sold on that being the next big thing, or are you kind of, that was fun and let's move on?
It is by far one of the most insane things I've ever experienced as a brewer. Kvike yeast is, forget what you knew about yeast and kind of like temperature parameters, gravity parameters, pitch rates, all that. Throw it all out the window. It is one of it's one of the craziest ingredients I think that you can put in beer, and it's getting back to yeast. I mean, usually it's like, okay, I want to put this cookie or this cake. It's like, no. Have you used Kvike? I mean, you can do whatever you want to it. Fermented at 110 degrees. You don't. I mean, it's crazy. It's a lot of fun to brew with. The two beers that I brewed with, now granted, they haven't been the biggest sellers, but they were the most fun to brew, because it's like, all right, just as soon as you think you're doing everything correctly, you read and it's like, oh no, you fermented it at 95 degrees. Oh no, fermented at 110 degrees. Oh no, it's perfect. Oh, you did this many grams per liter. Oh no, do this. It can ferment at this. Do whatever you want to it, and it will give you clean beer, delicious beer. I think more brewers are going to start using it, and not just for saisons, for sours. I think you're going to see a lot more home brewers using it, because they're the people that have the least easily accessible fermentation controls in terms of temperature. So I think you're going to see a lot of people who are like, dude, I can't afford to buy a refrigerator and get a temp controller for it and spend $200 on this. Like, nope, use Kvike. And you can do a stout with Kvike. You can do an amber ale with Kvike. So I think that that's the new trend. But it's not going to be just a hot trend. I think it's going to be kind of like, the new norm is for homebrewers to start experimenting with, Hornindal or Voss or some other different types of strains of Kvike. I love it. I give it my stamp of approval, and I hope more homebrewers use it.
That's great. And you know what? We're running out of time, Kirby. So if people want to keep track of what is happening with Monkeytown Brewing, where should they go?
Definitely go to our Facebook. That's where I do the majority of my postings for beers, for updates, for events. So, of course, Monkeytown Brewing Company. Check out our website, monkeytownbrewing.com. Go on our Instagram page. But yeah, we're here downtown Dayton, Tennessee, 7 days a week, lunch and dinner, full food menu, pool tables, beer garden. We do it all.
Awesome, Kirby. We appreciate you joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. Make sure to join us next week as we talk with the guys from Abomination Brewing. For more craft beer info, just follow us online. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.